I'm going mute.
Okay, now we're at the New Jersey Department of State website, and from there you would go to Civic Engagement, down to AmeriCorps, and from the AmeriCorps website on the right-hand side, you would go to Grant Opportunities. And this is our Grant Opportunities page, where it lists the AmeriCorps Competitive Notice of Funding Opportunity. And the first thing that it talks about would be the competitive NOFO application timeline. So this is our timeline. We've had our general TA session, which you're viewing the recording. On October 5th is the technical assistance session on evidence, logic models, and performance measures, which we highly recommend that you apply. This is a big chunk. This portion is a big chunk of the scoring for this application. So you really need to know the ins and outs of logic models, evidence, and performance measures as defined by AmeriCorps. On October 27th, we ask that you, if you are considering applying, that you submit a notice of intent to apply to our commission. At that point, I will be submitting to you a sample budget so that you have an idea of the kinds of things that should appear on your budget. On November 8th, the competitive applications are due to our commission by 4 o'clock. If you have, and this is, if you have any technical issues, please go to the help desk, get a ticket number and summary of the problem, and share that with me so that I can then give you more time to submit. But please try to get your application in sooner than the deadline so that you don't have glitches at the end with e-grants. On November 13th, there will be an the independent review of the applications will begin, and the competitive application reader arena will take place on November 27th. You will be notified soon after that if you were selected for submission to the national competition. There may be some revisions that we are requesting before we make that final submission. Our staff will be reviewing them, and we'll give you feedback on that, and you will be submitting the application back to us with your revisions. On December 19th, the New Jersey Commission Board will vote on those selected applicants and whether or not they will go to the national competition. On December 22nd, the New Jersey Commission is our New Jersey Commission target date to submit the completed package to AmeriCorps. Generally, we try to submit the package ahead of time so that we don't have any last minute problems with e-grants. January 4th is our drop dead deadline by 5 p.m. So, but again, I always try to get it in sooner. So December 22nd is my due date at this time. Mid-April, you should be notified, or we'll know one way or the other who was selected for award by AmeriCorps National. And in mid-July, the successful competitive applicants will be issued the awards. So that's the timeline. If you have any questions on that, please contact us. I know it's a tight, timeline, but generally that's the way it generally is, has been for many years now. Okay, let's move on. So here is the download for the competitive NOFO. Again, the timeline and the competitive flyer, where you can access links to to our website again. Let's just go quickly through the NOFO. I just want to show you how it's constructed and put together so that as you read it, you know the sections that are important to look at. So here's the actual NOFO again with the due date of November 8th. Here is the information. So section 1 is the one that is basically all of the information at our commission level, at the New Jersey level, talking about things like description of the grant program and the award information, who's eligible to apply, regulatory sources of funding, technical assistance, the submission, how you submit, program requirements or benefits, and the New Jersey training and events that we hold, and evaluation of these applications. Section 2 is the actual NOFO criterion and more information. This is the actual NOFA that's put out by AmeriCorps Nationals, so you definitely want to read through that. I will go over the PowerPoint, but the PowerPoint is not all inclusive. It does include most of the information, but not all, so you definitely want to read that. Section 3 is the mandatory supplemental information. These are your concepts that are defined for you. So if you have a question about, a particular way, a phrase or something, this is generally where you would look to see how they define that. One of the things you definitely want to look at is how they define the different evidence tiers. So those tiers are, there's 4 of them. One is pre-preliminary tier. Then there's a preliminary tier of evidence, a moderate, and a strong tier. And those are defined within the mandatory supplemental information. And here is the link, how to get to that. You do need to read that because some of the criteria will include your selection of which of those 4 tiers your application reflects. Okay, next is the application instructions. So this is the instructions that will tell you how to get your application in on eGrants. I will at some point in this presentation go over how to get an application created, but then actually how to put the information into that application. You will need to come to the instructions. So that's this section here. When you go to this link, it'll pop up and you just follow that along. Section 5 is the AmeriCorps State and National Performance Measures instructions. This is the list of standardized performance measures which you can use in your application. You can also determine your own performance measures, but if you're a brand new program, you definitely want to take a look at this and see. Again, CREES, the Center for Research and Evaluation in Education and Human Services from Montclair State University, will be reviewing these on October 5th. So it's really important for you to look at that and kind of follow along there. And then there's the AmeriCorps National Evaluation Plan template. This is for programs who are recompetes. If you've had funding as a competitive program for at least one 3-year cycle, you have to submit a plan, and there's the template for that. And then there is the Operational Financial Management Survey, and this is an online form, so you need to submit that online separately, and this is the link to get to that as well. Okay, so those are the links that are the links that are important of how all of the different sections of this actual NOFO. So please read through all of that as well. And now I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to go back to our presentation. Okay, so let's move forward. I already went over our timeline. Here it is again, though, if you want to see it on the PowerPoint. I talked a little bit about the different sections. Again, here is what those categories are, but the links are in the actual NOFO itself. And then here's the list of our 6 categories. I know Lori talked a little bit about this in her presentation. We're going to take a little deeper dive into what these mean. So the first one is economic opportunity. So these are focus areas. In the AmeriCorps NOFO, you'll notice that there are focus areas and there are priority areas. Focus areas are pretty much stay consistent every year. Since 2007, these have been the same 6 focus areas. Priority areas are yearly priorities that the corporation or that AmeriCorps National considers being the kinds of programs they would like to see for that year. It doesn't mean that if you have a different focus that doesn't fit into the priority that you cannot apply. There are no points for applying your application or creating an application that fits one of those priorities. So definitely, if you have something that's outside the scope of that, please consider submitting it anyway. What AmeriCorps is interested in is funding strong programs that really have a very well logic model, evidence, and those kinds of things. So again, we'll go over what those priority areas are, but first let me continue to focus on the focus areas that are consistent every year. So economic opportunity being one of them is improving the economic well-being and security of underserved individuals. This generally includes things like housing, financial management, helping individuals with understanding how to get jobs. It could be any of those areas that are part of economic opportunity. Education, improving educational outcomes for underserved people, especially children. AmeriCorps is particularly interested in program designs that support youth engagement and service learning as strategies to achieve higher educational outcomes. So education can go from K level all the way to high school, creating a seamless tie to college, mentoring programs that address academic success, programs that address behavioral issues that get in the way of academic success, maybe things like tardiness, attendance. So it could be a gamut of a lot of different things. You would probably, you could focus the program on early childhood, maybe on reading, making sure that children read by 3rd grade independently. So there's a lot of different focuses that this can take by way of education. Healthy Futures, that is one of our biggest growing focus areas. Support for health needs within communities, including mitigating the impacts of public health crisis, access to care, aging in place, and addressing childhood obesity, especially in underserved communities. So it could be, again, a number of different things that address helping individuals to access good health care, and navigating systems that deal with with different health issues like health insurance and those kinds of things. Veterans and military families, we currently do not in New Jersey in our portfolio have programs that address improving the quality of life of veterans, military families, caregivers, and survivors. Disaster services, helping individuals and communities prepare for, respond to, recover from, and mitigate the effects of disasters and increase community resiliency. So we don't have any particular programs focused on that, but if this is an area that you particularly want to address, we certainly welcome an application in that area. Helping environmental stewardship, supporting communities to become more resilient through measures that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, conserve land and water, increase renewable energy use, and improve at-risk ecosystems, especially in underserved households and communities. So again, environmental stewardship also includes things like climate change, any kinds of initiative that deals with conserving water and land use, water quality, and those kinds of things as well. Funding priorities, AmeriCorps will target its investments towards communities where the need is greatest, particularly those with populations that face racial inequality and poverty. AmeriCorps priorities for this funding opportunities are as follows. So these are the priority areas that I mentioned before. This changes year to year. Funding, the first one is organizations leading service in communities with concentrated poverty, rural communities, tribal communities, and those organizations serving historically underrepresented and underserved individuals, including but not limited to communities of color, immigrants and refugees, people with disabilities, people who identify as part of the LGBTQIA+ community, and people who with arrest and or conviction records, and religious minorities. Okay. Another funding priority is we have something that's called the AmeriCorps Evidence Exchange. You can access this at AmeriCorps.gov and do a search for the AmeriCorps Evidence Exchange. These are programs that have already proven strong evidence, and they've conducted evaluations that can be replicated or evaluated in your application. So if you want to replicate one of those programs, you could claim a priority under the AmeriCorps Evidence Exchange. The funding priorities: veterans and military families, faith-based organizations, programs that provide additional benefits to AmeriCorps members. So programs that can provide things such as a higher living allowance for the members, transportation, housing, food, any of these items that would provide additional benefits to the AmeriCorps members than what the funds that we provide actually allow for. And programs that create workforce pathways for AmeriCorps members, including deliberate training, certifications, and hiring preferences or support. So workforce pathways, providing them with experience through their AmeriCorps service that would allow them to continue on in different areas. For instance, we have an apprenticeship program that provides individuals with how to weatherize homes. So this would be considered a workforce pathway priority. Environmental stewardship, as I mentioned before, I kind of went over this. So if it's an environmental stewardship program, that is also considered a priority area. Okay, community-based programs that enhance and expand services to second chance youth. So this is youth that would be who have served time in the correctional institutions, juvenile institutions, and these would be programs that would be working with those youth, providing mentorship, helping reduce recidivism and those kinds of things. Another priority area is programs that support civic bridge building programs and projects to reduce polarization and community divisions and provide training in civic bridge building skills and techniques to AmeriCorps members. And then finally, programs focusing on implementing or expanding access to high quality program design. Okay, proposing programs that receive priority consideration does not guarantee funding. So just because you do a priority, address one of these priority areas, it doesn't guarantee funding. You still have to compete with many other programs. Okay, performance measures. So just so that you know, and I know you'll be going over this with CREES again, performance measures, all applications must include at least one aligned performance measure, which includes an output and an outcome that corresponds to the proposed primary intervention. So an output would be all of your bean counting, your units of service, how many AmeriCorps members serve, how many sessions of how to find a job, how many tutoring sessions the students attend, and the outcome would be what the difference is: an increase or a decrease in a particular behavior, an increase in academic achievement. So it's what the difference was made by actually attending one of the sessions or by receiving assistance from the AmeriCorps members. So the difference that those services create in the lives of those beneficiaries. And that could be changes in knowledge and skills. It could be changes in behavior, and outcomes, or changes in conditions, and those kinds of things. Okay, so these changes could also be short-term, they could be medium-term, or long-lasting. Okay, okay. All right. Determining the types of programs. So there are a couple of different types of programs, but the majority of our programs that come into our commission are regular cost reimbursement programs. So that means that the funds will fund some of your operating of your program, as well as all of the costs associated with the members' living allowance. The professional core is basically a program where there's a need in a community for a particular type of professional, and those stipends, member stipends, are generally picked up by either a school district or another entity. And so all that is required for the grant is basically operating costs. And then there's the full cost fixed amount grants. Fixed amount grants are only available for recompeting applications, and basically they don't have to demonstrate a budget to us, but they will have to provide match within their program in order to run it. The difference is they don't need to demonstrate that budget to us. So that's the difference. Okay. Eligibility is pretty much open to all of these organizations. The difference is that they're not open, it's not open to any entity that's a for-profit. So it has to be a nonprofit, or, you know, it could be a municipality, could be a state entity as well, or an LEA, local education agency, and so on. Okay, page limitations. There are two sections with mandatory page limits. One is the narrative and the other one is the logic model. This is a significant change. In the narrative page limitations, it's pretty much the same, but you'll see that for the logic model, they've expanded from 3 pages to 8 pages. So applicants must not exceed 10 pages for the narrative or 12 pages for multi-state operating sites. And what they mean by multi-state operating sites would be that the program would have to be operating within 5 states. So for the purposes of your application coming to the New Jersey Commission, they would only be operating in New Jersey. So that would be 10 pages. 10 pages. You have to make sure that you don't exceed those 10 pages by going to the review link and looking at the application itself and making sure it's within 10 pages. Don't go by a Word document. If you're doing this on a Word document, which most applicants do, and do a word count, just make sure you still go to the review link and you view actually how it's coming across in eGrants, okay, because it's going to be different. The readers at the national level and the readers in New Jersey will not read anything that goes beyond 10 pages. And one of those pages is the face sheet with all of the information, the demographic information of your organization. So you actually only have 9 pages in which to put your narrative information. And that portion of the narrative that is covered within the 10 pages are your executive summary, the face sheet, as I mentioned before, and the program design, the organizational capacity, and cost effectiveness and budget adequacy sections of the application. Okay, so only that. Things that are not included in those 10 pages would be things like the budget, the narrative portion of the evaluation plan, the logic model, performance measures, or the supplementary materials if applicable. Okay, your logic model. The logic model may not exceed 8 pages when printed with the application from the Review tab in eGrants. Please note the length of a document in word processing software may be different than what will print out in the America web-based system. As I mentioned before, please go to that review link because the system itself won't stop. It'll continue to, you know, if you put in 12 pages, it's not going to stop you at 10 pages. So you have to make sure you look in at that review tab. Okay, the funding period for this is 3 years. So year 1 will start September 1st, 2024 to August 31st, 2025. And year 3 runs to the end of August 2027. There is the possibility of no cost extensions as well. And you know, if you get funded, we'll talk about that after that. But basically it's a 3-year grant. Your first year is your competition. Years 2 and 3 are continuation grants. So based on your year 1 application. So if everything goes well with performance and so on, you would just submit your competition, your continuation, and make any updates to the budget, performance measures, or anything. And basically it's a much easier process for year 2 and 3. Okay, the notice of intent to apply is due to us on Friday, October 27th by 4 o'clock with this information. There is a form that will be available for you to fill out and submit to us. Okay. And your application has to be submitted as I mentioned before, Wednesday, November 8th, 4 o'clock. Additional documents would be things like any studies that you submit based on the evidence tier that you select. Again, they'll go over that during the CREE's presentation, but the financial management survey will be done online, so you don't have to submit that to us. But anything that you submit to us, you will submit directly to the commission, not AmeriCorps National. Okay. All right. Very important. If you get selected for funding, you would have to have a SAM registration that is current, or they will not give you the award. So make sure that you follow along and that you make sure that all the information that you need with your unique entity identifier is as part of the SAM registration is all up to date. Okay. Okay, next is the selection criteria. Okay, so here are the points that will be given for each of the different sections. This has changed from prior years. So if you applied in prior years, just be aware that there have been some significant changes in the criteria. First is the community and logic model at 24 points. And as you can see, out of 50 points, that's almost half. So you want to make sure that you understand what they are asking when it comes to the community and logic model. The evidence tier section is 12 points. And then the evidence, the 12 points and the evidence quality is 8 points. So then there is the member experience for 6 points. There are no points ascribed to notice priority. Organizational capability is 25% for that section. The organizational background and staffing is 15 points. Member supervision is 6 points. Commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility is 4 points. So we'll go over those criteria in a minute. And then, the last section is the cost effectiveness and budget adequacy for 25%. So it used to be that all you would do for this particular section was put all the detail under the budget itself and write in this section, see budget. But now they're actually asking you to write some narrative that explains all of this criteria within that section as well. So that is a significant change from other years. Okay, so your executive summary, you will find the executive summary information as part of the criteria in the NOFO. All you will do is copy and paste the information that is being asked in this template. The name of your organization will have the number of AmeriCorps members, so it could be 10 or whatever you're seeking to apply for, who will and then provide a description of the services that they're going to be doing and so on. Again, there's no points for this, but it is required, and you have to follow this without adding any additional information to this section. Okay. All right. Community and logic model. Okay, so the next section will be your program design for 50%, which encompasses your community and logic model, evidence tier, evidence quality. These sections will be covered at the Montclair State CREE's information, but I just want to quickly point out what that would be. So the applicant will provide a detailed summary of the community problem, including the role, current or historical inequities faced by underserved communities may play in contributing to the problem. So you're going to actually take a look at the CDC's Social Vulnerability Index through this link. And communicate the severity and prevalence of the problem that you are describing in your application. Okay, so do not fail to check this out. This is important that you speak about, what that issue that you're going to be addressing is. Okay, the applicant's intervention is likely to lead to outcomes identified in the organization's logic model. So if you know anything about logic models, generally your first column has to do with describing the community problem. The next column is your resources or your inputs. And then the next column, you're going to talk a little bit about the actual interventions. So one of the things that is asking is that the inputs or resources that are necessary to deliver the intervention include a description of the locations or sites in which the members will provide services, the context in which the intervention is delivered. And what they mean by intervention is the activities the AmeriCorps members are actually going to be carrying out. And the number of AmeriCorps members who will deliver the intervention and the characteristics of the AmeriCorps members, including specific knowledge, skills, abilities required to implement the intervention. Continuing on with the logic model, you'll describe the core activities that define the intervention or activities of the members that the members will implement or deliver, including the duration of the intervention, the dosage of the intervention, and the target population for the intervention. Generally speaking, where I see programs losing points is generally because they have not sufficiently defined their interventions. They generally, just gloss over this section. So make sure that you address these very specifically within your logic model. The measurable outputs that result from delivering the intervention. So that's your next column in that logic model, where you're going to talk about the number of beneficiaries served, the types and numbers of activities conducted, and so on. Okay. You can refer to the national performance measures in the performance measures section as well. Outcomes that demonstrate meaningful change in knowledge, skills, attitudes, or behaviors are your outcomes. So the outcomes, remember I was saying the outcomes are what describe either an increase or a decrease in a particular situation for the problem. Okay, so it could be an increase in knowledge and skills, an increase in a good attitude and good behavior related to whatever you're seeking as an outcome. It could be a reduction in a certain type of behavior, reduction in a particular type of attitude. Those are things that you will need to define. Or your end outcome, which could be a condition that will occur as a result of the intervention, such as finally getting that job. So that would be, going from not having a job to having a job, you're changing a condition. Okay. All right. Let's see. We'll talk a little bit about that. Rationales and justifications should be informed by the organization's performance data, program data observed over time that suggests targets are reasonable, relevant research, targets documented by organizations running similar programs and similar applications or prior program evaluation findings. The logic model cannot exceed 8 pages or it will not be reviewed. Okay. All right. Talking about evidence. So there are 2 sections, 2 parts to evidence. One of them is where you will select an evidence tier based on the definitions that I pointed out that will be included in the mandatory supplemental guidance. That information is where the 4 different evidence tiers are defined. So you want to take a look at that, and you're going to claim a particular evidence tier, whether it's pre-preliminary, and most new programs would probably be pre-preliminary evidence. If you've been running AmeriCorps for a while and you have some outcomes and performance measures that you want to share to support your application, you're probably going to apply as preliminary. And then your more sophisticated types of measures or evidence would be your moderate or strong. Again, and Crees will go over this in much more detail, but again, check the mandatory supplemental guidance for that. Okay. Okay, so just so that you know, the evidence tier for the prior year, applicants who were competing were as follows. 25% of the applicants demonstrated 25 strong evidence. 12% demonstrated moderate evidence. 20% demonstrated preliminary evidence, and 43% demonstrated pre-preliminary evidence. So just because you fall into pre-preliminary doesn't mean you won't get funded. Okay, so don't not consider not applying because you're not necessarily in the strong 25% area. Okay. Okay. Talked a little bit about evidence here. Evidence quality is basically the extent to which the quality of the evidence supports the proposed program design, and how that will be assessed and scored. Okay, so things like, so what's considered under evidence quality are things like the type of methodological quality. Was it convincing? Was it credible? Was it done within the last 6 years? Was it meaningful, and did it have significant positive effects on the program beneficiaries and so on? Okay, so the quality of that evidence, you're going to discuss for 8 points. Okay. Things we will talk again. So member experience. Okay, so that's the last portion of the program design for the 50 points total. The member experience is where you're going to talk about the AmeriCorps members, and how you will provide them with opportunities to develop as leaders. The AmeriCorps members will gain skills as a result of their training and service that can be utilized and will be valued by future employers after their service term is completed. So content training that you will be providing for the members that will teach them, for instance, how to work with children in a classroom, or it could be how to do water quality assessments. It could be anything that they need to be able to carry out their service, and that can carry on beyond by future employers who will be valued by future employers. Okay, AmeriCorps members receive additional benefits. So this could be anything from you could do different psychometric tests that give them insights into their strengths and areas they want to develop further. These are all different things that you want to do to enhance the member experience. Trainings that you could provide them in team leadership, developing them as leaders by assigning them to develop particular projects in a community as a community service event. So all different types of ways that you can develop leaders. Okay, you can have a curriculum on leadership development that you'll work with them on. And this is all considered part of developing those members. Okay, the applicant details how AmeriCorps members will be provided an opportunity to be leaders and gain skills during their term of service that will be valued by future employers. For instance, workforce pathways, increasing levels of responsibility, leadership roles for members, things like even like how to, good workplace behaviors, getting there on time, checking in with your supervisor at the beginning, at the end of the day. It could be anything that helps them to really be able to understand, what is appropriate in a workplace. The applicant details how AmeriCorps members will be provided a high quality orientation to the community that will serve, in that is from an asset-based frame and guided and informed by the community. So high quality orientation would be things like understanding the local community in which they're going to serve. What are the assets? What is your organization? What are the services your organization itself provides? Understanding the characteristics of the beneficiaries that you're going to be serving. Bringing in speakers to speak on that, to speak on the different content training. It could be things like understanding AmeriCorps 101. What is AmeriCorps? What are the things that you can and that you cannot do? What are the prohibited activities? So every member is going to be responsible for having a member contract. So that's a good opportunity to go over that member contract with those members so that they have clear expectations of the things that are allowed and not allowed while they serve. Okay. Member orientation. Some of our programs provide 2 weeks of member orientation. Generally, it's all done at the beginning of the program from day one. So the first day of service, generally they start with their orientation. Some programs do 3 days. As I mentioned, some other programs do longer. It depends on how your organization envisions that, and you want to speak to that. You want to speak to that in your application. Okay, organizational capability for 25 points. The first bullet point is defining the roles and responsibilities of the staff who will be working in AmeriCorps, and what they bring to the table in terms of skills and experience. The applicant has facilitated, partnered, or participated in educational workforce development programs, job training programs, and so forth. Again, you know, things that will help the AmeriCorps program in terms of looking beyond AmeriCorps to future years for those members who come through. The applicant describes the organization's mission and relevant experience in areas such as volunteer recruitment and management, community outreach, and overcoming project implementation challenges. All the great and wonderful things of your host organization and what they do and how successful they've been in the past. Member supervision for 6 points. The applicant details how AmeriCorps members will receive sufficient guidance and support from their supervisor to provide effective service, structure for member supervision, cadence and format of supervisor AmeriCorps member check-ins. So basically what they're talking about is how do you plan to manage your cadre of AmeriCorps members? How often will you meet with them? What will you do in terms of helping them to understand their service? Will you have reflection sessions with them? Will you have one-on-one meetings? Will you have group meetings? Will you have a combination of both? How often will you meet with them? How often will the supervisors be checking in with them, and so on? So these are some of the things that you need to spell out in terms of you know, how you're going to supervise those members. Please be aware that no other member can supervise another member. So it has to, the members have to be assigned to a site supervisor, whether that's the program director or site supervisors if they're going to be providing service at different sites outside in the community. The applicant details how AmeriCorps supervisors will be adequately trained and prepared to follow AmeriCorps and program regulations, priorities, and expectations, and structure for support of supervisors, training plans for supervisors related to supervision and AmeriCorps rules and regulations, cadence and format of the AmeriCorps supervisors and their supervisor check-ins. So the same thing, your program director, how often are they going to meet with their supervisors, site supervisors? Are they going to meet with them daily? Are they going to meet with them one-on-one? How is that going to happen? And how are they going to train them to know what the expectations are for AmeriCorps, so that they understand the ins and outs of AmeriCorps, what is prohibited activities, so that they don't send the AmeriCorps to do things that that are not allowed. So that's really important as well. We do some training on that generally at our commission, but we don't do it every year. So it's important that our subgrantees have a plan for how they're going to do that as well. Commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility for 4 points. So this is basically how you demonstrate diversity within your organization, within your board of directors, your staff, leadership within the organization, and so on. Sorry. Cost effectiveness. Okay, so this is another section that's really important. You want to speak about the different areas. You want to speak about, have a member recruitment plan for 7 points. How do you plan to recruit your members? and what are the budget expenses that are going to be used to do that. You may be doing social media, you may be using other forms, you may be going to college fairs, career fairs to do recruitment, or other different job fairs to do your recruitment. Could be announcements that you pay for. So you want to just, describe how you plan to recruit your members. And I can only say that this is a really important area because we have been struggling. AmeriCorps has been struggling with recruitment in recent years. Following the pandemic, jobs were very much available. And so they had, individuals had their pick of the lot. That's perhaps changing again, but you definitely want to have a very good recruitment plan in place. Member retention, how are you going to retain your members? You're going to do it by, and what are the budget expenses to support the retention of your members? Things like perhaps providing a higher living allowance for your members so that they stay with the program and don't leave at the opportunity of getting a better paying job. Supporting workforce pathways, certifications that your organization might provide, coaching for those members, life skills coaching, resume building, individual benefits, as well as community building, network building, member recognition, and alumni programming, and so on. So there's a lot of different ways that you can retain your members. And again, we find that those programs that recognize members, that recognize successes, and that demonstrate that they value the service of those AmeriCorps members are generally the ones that have fewer retention issues and fewer members leaving. So there's that. Okay. Data collection. The applicant provides a description of budget expenses to support data collection, continuous improvement activities, and evaluation and service to evaluating the interventions and impact on the community and the member experience. So how are you going to collect your data, and what budget expenses will be there, either to do evaluation or to do tallying of your data that you collect from your programs for performance measures? Who's going to be doing that, and what are the expenses related to that in your budget? Budget alignment to program design. Again, the one thing for 3 points is you want to make sure that your program design aligns with all of the different categories within your budget, and that there's nothing extraneous in your budget that's not reflective of what the program is planning to do. Okay, evaluation summaries, as I mentioned before, is only for recompeting grantees. So I'm not going to go over that, but just please, if you are recompeting, please read this information so that you know where to submit your evaluations or your evaluation plan. Okay, talking a little bit about the budget. So what is a cost per MSY? So your the amount of funds that AmeriCorps will provide your organization is predicated on a formula called cost per MSY. And MSY stands for member service year. It's basically by statute, that definition, but what it means is the full-time equivalent. So let's say you have 10 AmeriCorps members, and that would be considered 10 MSYs or 10 full-time equivalents. You could have 20 half-time members, but that would still constitute 10 MSYs, because what they're looking for is what are the full-time equivalents for the program. So you would multiply your MSYs, number of MSYs, so let's say in this case it's 10, by the traditional cost reimbursement amount of $25,000. So you would multiply 25,000 times 10 and get 250,000. So the most you can get for your AmeriCorps fund or award would be $250,000 for 10 AmeriCorps members and the related expenses and operating costs for your program. Okay, that's how that works. So in this case, there's another example that says 18 full-time members, and that would mean, so you would multiply 18 full-time members times 250,000 for a maximum of $450,000. Now, AmeriCorps, if you're a new program, they do not like to fund more than 50 AmeriCorps slots. So you would have to see, depending on the slot types that you're applying for, how many MSYs that would mean. So if you're looking at 50 full-time slots, you would multiply 50 by 25,000 to get whatever that number is, okay? All right, let's get the next slide. So professional core, before I leave this, these again are professional core up to $1,000, professional core fixed amount grants up to $1,000, because in their case, the AmeriCorps stipends, the living cost for the AmeriCorps members, which is generally the biggest portion of the budget, is picked up by another entity, like a school district or some other entity. So they're only given a cost per MSY of up to $1,000, okay, to help cover some of their operating costs. And the full cost fixed amount grants, if it's a fixed amount grant, you can apply for up to 25,000 maximum cost per MSY. Okay. All right. So here are the terms of service for the program. The first column is the different types of slots that you can create a program for AmeriCorps. So you can decide to pick out, a program that is only full-time members, maybe 10 full-time members, each member having to do 1,700 hours of service at least, and we generally recommend a little bit higher. But basically, when you build your budget, you're going to put 1,700 times 10, okay, to get whatever that number is, okay? And then that's considered 1 MSY for each of those members. And the minimum total living allowance that you can pay them, that you have to pay those members, is $18,700. You can provide them a higher stipend that can go as high as $37,400, okay? But you have to provide your full-time members with at least $18,700, okay? And then it goes down into the other slot types. So 3/4 time slot is considered 1,200 hours. The MSYs for that is 0.70. So if you were to bring on 10 members, again, that were 3/4 time, and I'm just using 10 as an example, could be 15, 20, whatever. You would multiply 10 times 0.70 and to get the amount of MSYs that you need. And then your minimum total living allowance would be 13,200. So you would pay those members 13,200 for 1,200 hours of service or more, okay? Maximum living allowance for them would be 26,000. Okay, then we have half-time members, reduced half-time members. So these are all of the hours that correspond to each of those different slot types. You want to define why you selected quarter-time members versus full-time members versus perhaps abbreviated time. Most of our programs provide either full-time or half-time. Those two tend to be the biggest ones. But school districts, because they run generally from September to the end of June, they like this 3/4 time because the member can then do 1,200 hours much easier from during those 10 months. So that's generally what we find. Campus-based programs like the 3/4 time, or a lot of universities, if their members are also doing service, some of them like either quarter time or minimum time, because they don't want the member to sacrifice their academic curriculum, the courses they need to take. They want to make sure that AmeriCorps can be done alongside of their normal academic workload. So there's a lot of different reasons why some of these slot types are more attractive to a particular program design. You can pick a combination of these. It doesn't have to be, so if you want a halftime, it doesn't have to be all halftime. You could pick, you know, several halftime members as well as, you know, a couple of quarter time or whatever. So it just, what you have to do is then multiply the number times the corresponding MSY percentage, okay, to get your total MSYs. All right. If you have any questions on this, just let us know. But this chart is particularly helpful when it comes time to creating your budget and understanding how many members you want to bring into your program design when you develop your logic model. And again, you're focused on those interventions with those AmeriCorps members. Okay. All right. If you didn't know it already, AmeriCorps does require match. So the match for a brand new program for years 1, 2, and 3 is 24%. Okay, and then returning programs. So if you get funded for the first 3-year cycle, it stays pretty constant at 24%. And then years 4, 5, and 6, and at the next 3-year cycle, which would be 4, 5, and 6, it can conceivably go up to 34% by the 6th year. And we have programs, many programs that are actually at year 10 or beyond, and they're already at 50%. So also know that in the recently, the AmeriCorps National has a match waiver in place. So it is possible that you will be able to apply for a lower match level if you can demonstrate hardship in your particular community. We have encouraged this for many of our programs, and several of our programs, I would say almost half, have applied for a match waiver and none have been turned down. So those programs that are generally at a 50%, a lot of them have been taken down to like 33%. And some of them that are at 24% with a match waiver, they can actually get 0%. So don't let the match put you off if you're considering applying for AmeriCorps. Okay. We take a particular, we at the commission take a certain percentage from our programs for programming and for our online systems. So if you request a program that is 12 MSYs or less, we do not take anything. If it's a program that you're requesting with 13 to 17 MSYs, we will take 1% of your 5% administrative allowance. Okay. And programs with 18 or more MSYs will allocate 2% of their administrative allowance. So while you're allowed 5% of admin costs, again, it depends on how many MSYs, and our commission may take a portion of that. Okay. If you have questions on that, just let us know. Okay, follow directions in the application instructions on page 4. So that you can put your, because e-grants, you know, you're going to need to know how to do that. So on page 4 of the application instructions section, which I went over earlier in this PowerPoint, that's where you're going to start to actually put your application in. The program manager training. So just so that you know, as you build your budget, you will be also budgeting for some of these as well. So we do a starting strong. It says here 3 days, but last year we only did 2 days. And then we did another starting strong during September, but generally the end of July, it is mandatory to send your program director and a fiscal person to starting strong. Your fiscal person only has to attend 1 day. Your program director has to attend all 2 or 3 days, depending on how many we do. And that generally takes place the end of July. Then there's the Ask regional training. And this year, it'll be in Minnesota. I don't know for year 24-25 where it will be, but this year it will be in April. So it's generally conducted in late spring. And it's usually someplace outside of New Jersey. So things like, you know, airline or travel or train or whatever, need to be considered for, you know, to train. And it's mandatory that you send at least one person from your organization. This is something we require. Other training, we have typically, sometimes we have a career day, site supervisor trainings, and we have monthly conference calls or meetings. Once in a while, we'll have an in-person meeting, but most of them are conference calls that we have on a monthly basis. So in constructing the budget, figuring the cost for transportation, meals, and possible overnight accommodations related to all AmeriCorps Commission staff training. We generally, for starting strong, pick up registration. So the only thing that you would be responsible for would be travel there, and possible overnight if you wish your staff to stay overnight. And the Ask Regional training, yeah, that is, you know, that is some of the meals, travel, and lodging. So, okay. The members are required to attend the AmeriCorps launch, which will take place October 2024. So that is a required training for them to attend. Lately, we've been doing in person, but sometimes we do virtual. End of year training will take place either in May or June of 2025. Again, sometimes this is virtual, but it may be in person, in which case you would have to provide travel for the AmeriCorps members as well. And any other statewide training, sometimes we do career day as an additional training for the members themselves as well. Okay, so if you wish to look at the regulations for AmeriCorps, you can look at www.ecfr.gov. It's interesting reading, but there's also, you can also go to the AmeriCorps.gov funding opportunities. They have a lot of resources there that you could also look at and frequently ask questions if you wish to review any of that as you're applying or as you're researching into applying for this. And here's our contact information. So you can contact us at any time by sending an email to AmeriCorps New Jersey. And I want to stop sharing this, but I want to also take you to show you how you would go about creating an application for this. Okay, and this is the last section. 5 more minutes and we'll be done. Okay, so you will go to egrants.cns.gov. Okay, and that'll bring you to the eGrants login page. If you do not have an eGrants account, you go to this link and you would create an account. Okay. And if you already have an account, or once you have an account, then you go down to where it says login to eGrants. Okay. So I'm going to log in there. Sometimes it's a little slow. Okay, so this is mine. I have a whole bunch of stuff here because we're a commission. So you will not have all of that. All of this stuff, you'll probably just have you all at that point if you're new. You will go down to the lower left-hand corner where it says creating an application, and you will go to where it says new. If you are continuing a program that was started last year or the year before, and you're just submitting continuation, you would go to continuation renewal. But if you're new, you would go here. Okay. You will select the NOFA, drop down, hit AmeriCorps, and hit go. Okay. And then it brings up all of the open NOFAs. Some of them have actually already closed, but they're open for various reasons. You're going to go to FY24. These are all FY23, 22. Okay, so the first one for FY24 is AmeriCorps territories without a commission. We do have a commission, so that's not it. And the next one would be FY24 AmeriCorps direct fixed amount. We are not a fixed amount grant. Fixed amount grants operate in more than one state. This is just for New Jersey. So you're going to go to the next one that says FY24 AmeriCorps State and Territory Commission new and continuation with a due date of January 4th, 2024. So remember, your due date to us will be November 8th, but our due date for the entire package will be January 4th. So this is the one that you're going to select. Okay. All right. Okay. And you go down, you hit next. Okay. So this is for our formula programs. This is to renew if you're a formula program, but you are going to go and answer the question, no, I am sure I want to apply for a new grant. So you would hit that. Okay, and then it's going to say choose a state from the drop down, and you will pick New Jersey. And then it'll say select a prime application ID. And here it will say New Jersey State Competitive Program, and that will be the application ID. Okay, that is the correct one. And then you're going to hit competitive. Okay, I can't do it right now because I'm a commission. For some reason, it's not letting me choose competitive. If you have a problem creating it, please go to the help desk and tell them that you're trying to get into this competitive program with this number. Okay, and they'll help you navigate to that. Okay, because sometimes American can get a little glitchy. Okay, but that's basically how you create your application. And then you go to page 4. Okay, and you just continue to fill out the different links that are available there. Okay, your narratives and so on. I recommend that you put your narrative sections in a Word document and you copy and paste. The links that will take you the longest are going to be your performance measures. So do not wait until the last minute to do your performance measures. Make sure you give yourself adequate time because it's a little glitchy, and there are very good instructions in the application instructions, but you need to read them and you need to understand how that unfolds because it just kind of builds on each other kind of thing. And then your budget, of course, will take some time, and your logic model. But your narratives, I recommend that you put those basically in a Word format and then copy and paste those into the different sections. Any section that you don't have to fill in, like there's a section on amendments, okay, or whatever, you could just put NA, okay? But the application instructions are pretty good at describing what that is. Alrighty, so that concludes my presentation on how to apply for competitive. Again, if you have any questions, please send us an email to the AmeriCorps New Jersey address, the emails that are on this PowerPoint, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. Okay. All right. Thank you so much and good luck.